Why am I calling this video Reaching Your Hockey Potential? Because when it comes to reaching your hockey potential, that exclusively comes down to recovery. Why? Because you can only play to your potential if you're 100% prepared for the game. You need to have 100% recovery status in your body, in your mind, with your nervous system, with your muscles. We need to have everything recovered if you have any chance on reaching your potential on game night and really feeling in the zone when you're out in the ice. A lot of athletes, they know exactly what I mean when they say that. Sometimes everything's just flowing better. You're reading the ice better, you're passing better, you're shooting better, you've got better hands, you're all over the place in the best possible way. You're just executing your game the way you want to execute it. That comes down to recovery. It's not just some sort of magical thing that you have on any given night. It's because you were recovered on that given night, which allowed your body to perform to its true potential. So how do you ensure optimal recovery status all season long so that you can dominate this year? Well, it comes down to something known as stimulus recovery adaptation, or what's known as an SRA curve, stimulus recovery adaptation, an SRA curve within the sports science literature. Training, we create a stimulus, but when we recover, we adapt to that stimulus. So let's talk about what it looks like to work out. This right here is your performance level. So we're going to be at our performance here, and this is our level of recovery. So what we're looking at is when you train, you're actually going to have a decrease in performance, because performance is this vertical axis here. You're going to have a decrease in performance after you train. Why? Because you're fatigued. You're never going to perform as good at the end of a workout as you are going to in the beginning of the workout. And that's because the muscles fatigue, the nervous system fatigues, and you also undergo a lot of glycogen depletion and dehydration as the session goes on and on and on. So we have a slight performance decrease from a hard training session. But that decrease caused a stimulus. What we do in the gym is stimulate strength development, stimulate muscle development, stimulate speed, conditioning, agility, first step quickness, you name it. Whatever the training session was that day, that was the stimulus that we placed upon our body. Everything you do outside the gym determines whether or not you're going to adapt to that stimulus. So if you have your hockey diet correct, if you are sleeping appropriately, if you're doing the recovery strategies that we've talked about so much here at hockeytraining.com, you will do a hard training session and it will decrease your performance. But the training session was hard enough to create a desired stimulus on whatever the goal was of that session to then force the body to not only return to your current level of fitness, but actually improve it. So now this is your new baseline of performance. You've done something to create a stimulus that's forced the body to change. For example, if I go in the gym and I front squat 80% of my 1 rep max for 5 reps, that is a very grueling set. So my body and nervous system and brain will send certain molecular signals to itself saying, holy crap, that was extremely stressful on the lower body, our posture, and our core stability. We need to make sure we come back bigger and stronger next time so that we can handle that stress again, because I don't ever want to be subjected to that level of stress again. That was the stimulus. This is the adaptation. This is our new level of performance based upon our effective training workout. That is what, in very simple terms, what an SRA curve is. Stimulus, recovery, adaptation. Stimulus is the training. Recovery brings you back to your baseline of fitness or baseline of hockey performance. And then an adaptation to training is what takes you to the next level. That's what happens if everything is all good and well. And this would typically look like an off-season SRA curve. Now, what happens if we don't pay attention to our sleep quality? We are stressed out within our lives, and we're not following a hockey diet. We're not following the recommendations of electrolytes and hydration. What happens if we're not recovering optimally? Well, That person, we'll use a different color here to make things a little bit easier on the eyes. That person would undergo the exact same training session as the previous example, but since they didn't recover optimally, they won't get up to their baseline of fitness, and they definitely won't reach a new level of performance. So they recover just a little bit like that, but then what do? Well, they're going to go work out again, or they're going to go to hockey practice, or they're going to go to a game. They're going to partake in some form of physical exertion that week once again, which is going to take them down here. And then since they haven't smartened up and cleaned up their diet, done an in-season specific hockey training program, which is so important during this time of the year, they're only going to recover a little bit, and then they're going to play a hockey game and decrease the recovery again. They might recover a little bit, and then they're going to work out again and decrease the recovery again. So what does that look like down here? Overtraining. You're overtraining. You are not recovering from your practices, games, and workouts, and you are slowly but surely creating a debt of fatigue on your body. And if you remember, the first thing that I said for this presentation was to reach your hockey potential, you need to recover. Because how well do you think you're going to perform out in the ice if you're hanging out here and your competitors are hanging out here? They're going to absolutely smash you because they focused on recovery and they focused on an in-season specific hockey plan. What this looks like is overtraining, sure, but it also represents somebody who tries to do an off-season training program during the season. The off-season's volume, intensity, density, frequency, and just overall aggressiveness towards training for your goals, the off-season's completely different than the in-season. So some hockey athletes say things like, man, I can't lift weights during the season. No, you can't do an off-season program during the season. There's a reason why every single NHL team has a strength and conditioning program all season long, because you need to have that in place all season long to stay strong on the puck, have good shot power, have your explosiveness and your conditioning. You need this in your strength and conditioning program to make sure you stay strong all season long. And if you try to do an off-season program during this time, you're going to dig a level of fatigue that you won't be able to crawl out of, and it will show in your performance out in the ice. You're also going to put yourself at a massive risk for injury because you are overtrained at that point, and you're also going to feel the grind of the season. Your psychological and emotional arousal for going to practice and going to games, it might just be flatlined. It's not that exciting to be out in the ice, and we know the difference of going through the motions and then really being there to play hockey. So we want to avoid this as much as possible. This is probably the #1 mistake that hockey athletes make during the season, is they don't focus on recovery, or they're doing a program that is not in-season specific. Which brings me to the final example. The final example is an in-season example. An in-season example, you would train, but not as hard. Okay? The intensity, frequency, and volume prescriptions are smaller than the off-season. Notice how I went down pretty far here because the workout was grueling and our performance level decreased after that workout, but then we created a stimulus and we adapted. On the in-season, we don't want to create as hard of a stimulus because the job right now isn't to improve your squat. The job right now isn't to improve your bench press. The job right now is to make sure you dominate out in the ice. And the only way you're going to do that is by performing what's known as the MEV, minimal effective volume. The minimal effective volume of training to do what? To maintain your strength all season long. To maintain your hypertrophy, which is your muscle size, all season long. Strength is wildly important for speed and shot power. Muscle size is in place to make sure you're strong in front of the net and that you're always winning those puck battles. But what else are we doing with these sessions? We're doing the minimum effective volume to ensure you stay explosive all season long and that you stay conditioned all season long. These are things that we know within sports science, how to program the correct amount of volume and intensity to get the adaptations from all of these things, but to not overtrain. So an in-season SRA curve would look something like this. It would slightly decrease, but then come time for your game, because you programmed your schedule appropriately and you're doing an in-season specific program, you are going to return back to your base level of performance, which is exactly what you want heading into a game. Or if you do your in-season program correctly, you can even make progress during the season. That's correct. You can actually get stronger, get bigger, get faster, and get conditioned, more conditioned, as the season goes on. If you do an appropriate in-season specific program that's specifically made for hockey athletes, you follow a hockey meal plan, you make sure you're sleeping, you do all the things you know you should be doing. This is what an in-season SRA curve looks like. The volume, intensity, and frequency of training is brought down to the minimum effective volume to make sure that you're optimally recovered every single time you step on the ice, but you don't sacrifice any of the physical characteristics that you gained in the off-season. In the off-season, I like to think about it as physical development. In the in-season, I like to think about it as physical expression or skill expression. You want to develop your physique with hard training sessions in the off-season so that you can do, because you have the availability, you have the schedule, you can do all of this during the off-season. But in the in-season, your schedule does not allow that. You're traveling a lot, you've got games, you've got practices, your overall volume across the week is increased because of how much on-ice volume you have to recover from per week every week, which means in the gym, we have to perform the minimum effective volume in order to maintain all of those qualities and perhaps even gain upon them throughout the season. So now you know exactly how to reach your hockey potential. We know this is what the off-season looks like, but we also know that's off-season specific, and that our in-season should look a little bit more like this. And if your in-season doesn't look like this, and you try to do an off-season program, or you try to do a random bodybuilding diet or a random bodybuilding training program, you're going to ride this wave down to decrease hockey performance, feel the grind, potentially get injured, and just simply not reach your hockey potential. And anybody watching this video wants to maximize their potential in this sport and achieve their hockey dreams. So what can we do in order to maximally recover and therefore maximally perform on game night? The first thing that you can do is utilize a reps in reserve strategy, RIR. You'll have 2 reps in reserve for your entire training program all season long. This is something that I employ in all the new in-season programs here at hockeytraining.com. We have an in-season 2019 goalie program, in-season domination 2019 program, and also a youth in-season 2019 program. Every single program, we're utilizing a 2 reps in reserve strategy. What does that mean? Well, reps in reserve truly just means that. So if I assign you a set of 10 to perform in the gym of a barbell front squat, you would pick a weight that you can perform 12 with, but then still only perform 10. Why do we do this? Well, because as the research continues to come out in specifically the muscle physiology world, we're finding that that stimulus that we're trying to get here, that's maximally stimulated before you reach failure. I know a lot of you as athletes want to reach failure. We're there to work hard, right? But we can achieve maximal muscle recruitment, nervous system stimulation, strength development, muscle mass, conditioning speed, you name it, by holding back a little bit. Because when you look at the graphs of muscle fiber recruitment and creating a stimulus, you're going to create an optimal stimulus, and that's going to linearly go up until you're about at 2 reps short of failure. And the only thing that continues to go up after that part is fatigue. That's it. Fatigue takes a massive, fatigue looks like a hockey stick, actually, the curve, because it's pretty low until you start getting close to failure. And then neurally you fatigue, and also muscularly you fatigue. So we hold back the reps in reserve because it allows us to get the stimulus we want from training, and it definitely just cements in the idea that we're performing the minimum effective volume to maintain or perhaps get a boost in performance all season long. Make sure you're holding back, and this is represented in your strength training sessions, or for you youth athletes out there, body weight resistance training sessions. So 2 reps in reserve all season long. That's a rule. Every single exercise, every single set. Next, you got to have your hockey nutrition on point. So you can find a full free guide at hockeytraining.com/nutrition. I wrote an entire guide that's completely free for you to check out that's going to allow you to maximize your performance. In that guide, there's tournament day nutrition, there's game day nutrition, there's calories, there's protein, there's every single explanation you would ever need to really reach your potential in this sport. And when it comes to looking at this, whether it's in season or off season, training decreased performance because it was fatiguing to the body. What's the only thing that gets you out of that hole? Nutrition. You have to have your recovery-based nutrition in place in order to get out of that fatigue debt, because the number one source of fatigue is substrate depletion. Meaning, the number one source of fatigue is not refilling the supply and demand chain of carbohydrates and amino acids that you need to support both performance and recovery. So if you're not following a hockey-specific nutrition plan, it's impossible to reach your hockey potential because you're not going to be optimally recovering. And any athlete who's not optimally recovering is not optimally performing. You got to follow hockey-specific nutrition to get hockey-specific results. Eating clean is different than eating like a hockey player. Eating clean is just eating nutrient-dense foods. That doesn't mean you're eating for performance. Those are two different things. Next, you got to be sleeping. As the research continues to come out in the sleep world, you can connect sleep to pretty much anything that you want to. You can connect it to getting more colds and flus. You can connect it to being injured more often during contact sports. You can connect it to just physically being weaker. You can also connect it to it disrupting hormonal balance and even blood sugar balance throughout the day, which will massively affect your energy on a day-to-day basis. And sleep, I don't think I have to present any research to tell you that it also affects your neural performance. Nobody performs as well upstairs when they're tired. If you've ever done an exam or tried to write an essay or tried to do essentially anything, even order coffee can be kind of tough if you've had a terrible, terrible night's sleep, let alone try and go play an hour of hockey. Your sleep needs to be in check, and what the recommendation is 7 to 9 hours per night, every single night, ideally of uninterrupted sleep. So you actually don't want to wake up to go pee. One thing I like to tell hockey athletes to do is to reach their water goal every single day at 2 hours before bedtime. So you typically have half an ounce of water per pound of body weight per day every day. So if you're a 200-pound athlete, your water goal would be 100 ounces of water. And let's say you go to bed at 10 p.m. I would want you to have 100 ounces of water by 8 p.m. So 2 hours before I go to bed, so that I've got all of my hydration in for the day. I've got all the performance benefits from that, but I'm not going to get up at night to urinate a few times because that does affect what's known as REM wave sleep, your rapid eye movement, and it does affect your overall sleep quality. So do your best to sleep in a dark, cold room with no noise whatsoever. Try and decrease your water intake leading up to bed, and your goal is to get 7 to 9 hours of straight, uninterrupted sleep each and every single night. It'll improve your hockey performance, I can guarantee it. Last but not least, we have the ice bath. Now, the ice bath is something that's pretty interesting, and I'll bring Blue here to point it out. Ice baths is actually something I don't recommend during the off season because an ice bath is incredibly inflammation suppressing. I know that sounds like it's a good thing, but it's not a good thing for the off season because the off season, the main goal is to do physical development, not physical expression. Hockey performance isn't the main goal. So when you work out, you're going to be down here and you've got that stimulus. Well, that stimulus is inflammation. You've worked so hard in the gym to create an inflammatory response in a muscle cell so that it goes, holy crap, and then adapts to that stimulus and makes you better. What happens with ice baths is if you work out, you will have that slight decrease in performance, but then ice baths, I want to draw like a straight line up, because they will make your recovery much faster. It won't just be like a long, drawn-out recovery process. If you have an ice bath, you will recover immediately, but it does suppress the inflammatory signal. So what does that mean? You're just going to go back up to your original baseline of fitness. It's very likely that you will not adapt and reach a new level of performance because you've suppressed your inflammatory signal. And what we continue to see in the research is that this suppresses both aerobic and anaerobic adaptations. So if you want maximal physical development, you don't have ice baths after training, which is what you want in the off season. But in the in season, sign me up. If you're going to be doing a hard workout during the in-season or working out at all, and then you've got a tournament or a game the next day, you absolutely would benefit from an ice bath, because the goal at that point in time is not to optimally recover from that workout and get a better squat. The goal is to perform optimally in your tournament or the playoffs the next day. So get that ice bath in and recover faster so that you can enter the ice at 100% rather than 80%. So I really like ice baths during the season. I especially like them during playoffs, where the on-ice frequency is really increased, and also the on-ice intensity is increased as well. I think ice baths can really help. And then once you get the off-season, we stop those ice baths. All right, I hope you guys really enjoyed this presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions at this point in time, so just let me know, start loading up some questions. But also, I want to remind you once again, 3 brand new in-season programs are now live at hockeytraining.com/programs. If you're under 15 years old, the Youth In-Season 2019 program covers everything you need. If you're a goalie, the Goalie In-Season 2019 program, specific for players 15 and older, covers everything you need in a goalie-specific perspective, because we know you have unique needs. And last but not least, the In-Season Domination 2019 program is in place for any players out there who are forwards or Ds and they are over 15 years old. You can find all of the information about those programs at hockeytraining.com/programs. I want to work with you this season so you can reach your hockey potential.